everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Embrace ASD podcast. In this episode, we speak with Arik Marmorstein. He is a serial entrepreneur who lives in Israel, and to name just a few of the projects he's worked on, he's the co-founder of Mimoona, the founder of RefreshBox, and most recently the founder of Spectroomz, a remote freelance blog that connects autistic talents with businesses. We bring you Arik Marmostein. All right, everyone. I'm here, Matt, and Martin is co-hosting this time, and we've got our next guest, Arik Marmostein. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah, that's okay. Hey guys, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fantastic.
I'm good.
It's a beautiful day here in Massachusetts.
No, this is crazy.
Beautiful day to have coronavirus. Anyway, okay, but the first thing that comes to mind is just how industrious you are. So for our listeners, Arik, it's easier just to say what he doesn't do. I mean, he's a co-founder of Mimoona. I'm not sure how to pronounce it correctly. It's
that's Mimoona.
Mimoona. Yeah, so it's essentially one of the largest, if not the largest, crowdfunding service in Israel, having raised over $9 million to date through crowdfunding. And Spectroomz, which I believe is his most recent venture, he's a founder of. It's a remote freelance blog / service, and it connects autistic talent with businesses and corporations. That's how I met Arik. I am one of the, founding partners in Spectroomz.
I'm a member as well.
Oh, yes, that's right. Martin, that's very recent too. Martin just joined, right?
Yes.
And RefreshBox, the founder of RefreshBox, a 5-link collection newsletter creation service. So if you want to create a site, have a newsletter to put out weekly, daily, this site will help you curate that really easily. And, being a Kickstarter / Mimoona king, Arik has Sonya Bot created. It's the first crowdfunding bot coach because we don't need humans anymore. And last but not least, he serves as the head of growth at GIFs, however you choose to pronounce it. And he's a regular writer.
It's Gagi.
Gagi?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, don't trust me to pronounce anything correctly.
No, that's you've done a good job so far.
Thank you. And he's contributed in publications, big time ones such as VentureBeat. And again, it's easier to say what you haven't done. So first question is, how the hell do you have time to have like 5 jobs?
I've done that for the past I think 8 years. Basically, I went to law school and I had to run away from being a lawyer. So I had a lot of motivation to do Mimoona during the night, and Mimoona was my company for the past 8 years. We just like a few months ago we just shut it down. It was enough. And some of the projects you mentioned were like side projects I did while I was managing Mimoona. But starting from 2018, I joined Gagi as full time, and just recently I left Gagi and I started Spectroomz. So it's an ongoing process. I'm not doing everything at the same time, but I've got the entrepreneurship virus. If we're talking about viruses, so that's like it caught me.
Yeah, you heard it here first, folks. Corona wasn't good enough. He needed to create his own virus.
Yeah, something like that.
And yeah, so you're essentially the Elon Musk of Israel in a lot of ways.
No, I wouldn't say that. There are a lot of talented a lot of talented people in Israel. So that I'm not, but I want to be. I'm working hard to be.
Yeah, well, you're certainly well on your way. I mean, and speaking of Israel, there's one thing I wanted to bring up to you is I may butcher this pronunciation. Rachok, the program that the Israeli Defense Force has to enlist and recruit young autistic talents, and particularly Unit 9900, the Visual Intelligence Unit in the IDF. So it sounds to me like Israel's a country that's really really looking at to what autistic people can do and what uniquely benefits them. Do you find that this is reflected in greater society in Israel?
Unfortunately, I wouldn't say that. Before my son was diagnosed, I wasn't that aware for autism and employment. Definitely, Roim Rachok is the translation is you see far away. So this is a very sophisticated and promising program that brings autistic people into the army, and they're doing a very important job here. I am starting to see more startups and high-tech companies that are bringing autistic into the workforce, mainly as QA currently, which is good in one way, but it's unfortunate in another way because it's a huge spectrum. People can do so many things that I don't know why it became so popular, to hire autistic for QA jobs, but. I'm starting to see more and more people in different roles, but I wouldn't say Israel is more aware to that than other countries. Unfortunately, I think parents are. I'm a parent to an autistic child, and ever since I've started to be significantly more aware of that.
Absolutely, and I noticed even major corporations like SAP and Microsoft now have autistic-specific programs for recruitment, and Microsoft's leading the way in this regard. I mean, they completely got rid of the traditional interview process altogether, knowing that it largely inhibits a lot of autistic people who, they may not reciprocate typical body language and other things that people may give you lesser scores on if you were at a job interview, a typical job interview.
Yeah, I do get the impression that it's becoming more and more part of public awareness. Like Oxford University is very understanding with the very aware of autistic traits and how they can potentially undermine the job interview process and other interviews.
By the way, I think that the job interview process is not doing well to a lot of neurotypicals. I mean, you have to excel in like 20-30 minutes. They could read about your accomplishments, talk to to people who worked with you for 2 years and recommend you, and then they get people give like more significant to a 20-30 minutes interview. It sounds a bit silly to me, but maybe that's it's just me. But definitely Microsoft and SAP is also, they have the Autism at Work program. It's great, but I think that smaller companies could do it as well. I mean, it might even be easier for them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to, because you have to. If I've researched it a lot before I started Spectroomz. I've done a lot of research, and I had two solutions for the unemployment problem. Two solutions in mind. First one is educating employers, and then connect employers to autistic people and have them work in a traditional way. So I reached out to more than 500 companies, offering them to hire autistic people. I prepared a very specific guide on how to do that properly, and almost no one wanted to deal with it.
That's so sad.
It is. It wasn't on the top of their list. I mean, everyone says it's important, but it's not important enough to do it right now.
Yeah.
And when did you reach out?
So I reached out like 2.5-3 months ago.
Huh.
I knew.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I had like
very, very fresh.
It is. And big companies started talking to me. I had some calls as well, but I knew that it's a long process for them. And it seems to me that smaller companies, a startup with 3, 4, 5 people could do it much faster. You don't have to educate a lot of people. You just have to say, hey, meet Arik, he's autistic, and this is what he likes, this is what he doesn't like. When you see this sign, don't reach out to him. When you see, it's easier.
Yeah.
And it's more like a family. So So that was the first solution. And then I said, okay, it's not going to work fast enough for a startup to do that. And I've been talking to many autistic people, and they told me, listen, I prefer to work from home. I mean, choosing, and again, it's not all of them, but I've done a survey and I've talked to many people, and they told me, I wish to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
The traditional workplace is not a good fit for me. I don't want to go to a corporate event. I prefer not to socialize too much.
Did they explain why they had this aversion to socializing? Did you find it was because maybe a lot of them had bad experiences prior that made them not want to associate with people as much, especially in a workplace?
I must say I didn't get too much into why you prefer not to socialize. I didn't ask that question too much. I was able to understand that it causes a lot of stress.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's like the main issue. Socialize causes stress, and I don't want to be stressed. No one wants to be stressed.
Yeah, I can say from my experience, I once worked for a Fortune 75 company in IT doing cybersecurity.
Okay.
And I thought it was my dream job. It was great. This was before my diagnosis, and I just learned the intercompany politics, the competition, all of that drained me so much I had to quit. I mean, it wasn't the work as much as the politics surrounding the work. Office politics are just so toxic for me. And I imagine a lot of other people on the spectrum have that experience. I mean, Martin, what was your experience?
I guess I tried to stick with the smaller companies in particular because I just felt safer. It's more personal, and I've had pretty good experiences with that.
Yeah. And Arik, how would you feel? What are your experiences with work and law? I mean, you had a law internship, when you were fresh out of university. So how was that?
So university was great. I enjoyed almost every minute of it. But on the first,
you're a nerd.
Yeah. Yes, I am. No, I wasn't. As a child, I wasn't. But yeah, I became a big nerd. Anyway, I that was great. But the internship in Israel, you go to law school and then you do a year internship and then you can do the bar exams. And you don't have to study to graduate from another degree and then move to a law degree. You can just start with that.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense.
It's simply because we have the army for 3 years. So I started at 24. People in the US at 24 are already graduating and making great salaries. So it takes more time in Israel. Anyways, the internship was horrible. I mean, the first day I had to stay in the first day until 2 a.m. I'm not kidding you.
Oh
that's practically the first day I entered.
Is that even legal?
You are in. I interned in the biggest law firm in Israel.
Oh, dang!
They can do whatever they want.
Yeah,
but everyone does. So basically, 2 a.m. they told me to analyze some document I've never seen before, and that's the way it started, and that's the way it was for a year. Not 2 a.m. every day, but definitely 16 hours a day of intensive work. And in the middle, I decided I'm not gonna do that, and I started working on Mimoona on the crowdfunding platform during the nights. It was a crazy year. It went like a bad dream. And then I passed the bar exams, and I started officially at Mimoona. But when I think about it, I didn't interact too much. So people told me that I'm antisocial there. Yeah, when I think about it more and more, I remember a lot of the time eating alone, and simply because I enjoyed it more.
Wow.
I don't think I'm pretty sure I'm not autistic, but I was pretty isolated over there.
Yeah, it sounds like you may have aspie traits. Have you heard of broad autism phenotype?
I haven't.
Essentially, it's for people who don't meet the threshold to be, put under the Asperger's or autism label. Asperger's now deprecated, but they call it high functioning autism.
Yeah.
If you don't really fit that level of criteria, the broad autism phenotype explains how people are kind of in the middle. And it would make sense. You have a child on the spectrum.
Right.
it makes total sense that you'd have some aspie qualities. In fact, it's highly correlated with higher intelligence in people as having some aspie qualities to them.
Well, you would have passed on the autism genes to your child, certainly.
Actually, my child's case is my son has a relatively rare mutation.
Oh, wow.
He's okay, and you wouldn't see it, but he has a specific relatively rare mutation that is correlated both with autism and epilepsy.
Oh, wow.
So we actually know that's the reason.
Wow.
With him, yeah, that's
incredible insight.
Yeah, he has an amazing doctor who said let's do like full genetic test, and they found
that is unheard of in the United States. I mean, I've never. Usually, it's hard enough to even find a neuropsych to get the correct testing from, let alone a doctor who's going to sequence your genome.
Yeah, she's amazing. she's amazing. That's yeah. Most doctors are not like her, but she's like, yeah. That's it.
Do you think she herself is on the spectrum?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Was your son having seizures?
So he had one seizure. It was actually pretty crazy. I went to my best friend lives in New York, and I took a flight to New York, and we did a road trip. We drove 15 hours on the first day to Kentucky.
Oh my God!
And in the morning, that's like 24 hours after I landed in the States, in the middle of Kentucky, my wife is calling me and she says, "Our son is in the hospital. He just got a seizure." And I'm the lucky one, because she was with him alone in the house. Like, seeing your child start to have a seizure, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then I just
terrifying.
Took a flight back home like immediately, and but he had one seizure. He had three seizures during the day. After a while, we stopped the medication. Is okay so far. And after a while, we started seeing some. He's like super confusing. The little guy. He's like super confusing. Many people told us, "Hey, he should go to to the traditional education system," and many told us, "No, he shouldn't. He should go to." So it's like a weird situation, and actually that's really how I started talking to autistic people, autistic adults. I found it the best way for me to learn about it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting step that a lot of people don't. They kind of just haul up and panic, and they try to force normalcy onto their children. That's a lot of the mistake parents make. But it seems like you just embraced it, and rather you thought, well, let me go to the best source, people who have lived as an autistic person their whole lives, see what they make of it.
Exactly. That was my intention. I wanted to understand how it looks from autistic perspective. And I didn't even started, learning about different kinds of methods, ABA and all this stuff. I haven't dealt with it. I started talking to autistic people, and that's how I heard that ABA is horrible, and I shouldn't even get near it.
And that's actually a really important topic, and I'm really glad you brought it up. Did you hear that from the autistic people themselves?
Yeah.
Wow. And what are the kinds of things they said about it?
They simply said it's like forcing them to be someone they're not. I mean, the most common comment about it is, why do I have to look to someone in the eye? Why do you think you have to force me to look to someone in the eye?
Yeah.
And when I'm telling my son, hey, look me in the eye, not because of that, because it makes more sense in a specific situation. It's not about ABA. I see it's hard for him, so I stopped doing that. It's hard for him. That's it. Why do I have to force him to do that? I can understand him. Forcing someone to a specific body language it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and I'm lucky because the way my autism manifests is such that in social situations, I can stare people in the eye. I'm pretty good at the masking thing, and naturally, I'm not too uncomfortable with eye contact. But even I notice after extended periods of time, my friends understand it, thankfully, even my non-autistic friends, and they don't mind that I just don't make regular eye contact, because it does become physically painful. I don't know how else to explain it, but more than just discomfort. I mean, it starts to really take a toll on my cognitive performance if I stare too much.
Yeah,
It's very strange for sure.
and I think that even to neurotypicals, it's not that natural to talk with someone and all the time look them in the eye. I mean, you move your eyes to different directions every now and then. I mean, I don't know. I guess someone just thought it's too important, and again, it didn't make sense to me. So talking to autistic people helped me a lot to understand what I want to do.
At what age was your son diagnosed?
So officially at 3.5 a year ago.
So about the average time.
We started the process at 2.5. They didn't have a decision. I mean, the opinions were split between the doctor and the psychiatrist, and they said we need another year. And after another year, they decided that is on the spectrum.
That seems a very extensive process.
Yes.
Is it always like that, or were there special circumstances?
I think specifically for him, it is very confusing because when he talks to grown-ups, they don't realize, that he's autistic. If you tell them he's autistic, even grown-ups who knew him, they will tell you he's not autistic, which is annoying in many ways.
Right.
And but when you put him with children in his own age, you immediately see that he avoids any interaction. He doesn't like it. It causes him a lot of stress.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking to my own experiences, I remember that as a kid, a comment I often heard from adults were, since I'm hyperlexic and was hyperlexic when I was younger, the most common thing is they'd say, well, he's so good at talking to people and that I spoke like an adult. And, it kind of made some adults feel kind of weird how it almost made me seem like I was some prodigy. But in reality, it's actually very common for a lot of autistic kids is they for some reason get along better with adults, and they have more mature thinking in some ways and difficulties in other ways. It's a wide gamut too.
I would say probably the gifted autistic kids.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an important caveat. The gifted autistic kids. Thank you for that.
And that was a challenge with the broader family. Since Israel is such a small country, we basically see the broader family almost every week. It's not like we see each other only in in the big holidays, because it's like a 30 minutes drive or something like that. And the broader family is they don't understand what's going on. They haven't been in the entire process, and even if they do understand, they have no awareness to autism. People don't have enough awareness to autism, so that's frustrating as well.
Yeah, there are even many medical professionals that don't know enough about autism. When I was a kid, my parents suspected something, and they asked the doctor, and he said, no, absolutely not. He's not autistic. And then, like 2 decades later, I was diagnosed.
Yes, there was significantly less awareness back, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Now you are starting to see more and more awareness, and you see it with the numbers as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's crazy. As recently as 2018, I had doctors and psychiatrists who they tried to figure out what was going on, and I was reacting poorly to some SSRIs, and I didn't realize that I was experiencing burnout. I confused those symptoms with depression, and I got bipolar 2 as a possible disorder before I met someone who finally said, I think you're autistic. And then when you looked at how I behaved, it aligned perfectly. But it's incredible. Even today in the United States, there's so many professionals that really don't know much about autism. And they have ideas of what autism is. I'm very extroverted. I don't appear stereotypically autistic according to what they're used to thinking autistic people are like.
Yeah, quite a few autistic people have a long history of diagnoses, including borderline and bipolar, and they keep being sent away to other specialists. It's quite a problem, but there is more awareness being created.
Absolutely.
I think autism it didn't have a good PR firm, if I may say so.
No.
Yeah, Autism Speaks has not been the most charitable organization.
Yeah, and generally, when people when you say to common people autism, they think about Rayman if they're old enough.
Yeah.
Yep. But it's so much different than it really is a huge spectrum. I don't need to tell you.
But it's also fascinating, like what the cultural influence of that movie was. Now we see more like movies and series with different expressions of autism. I guess usually it's still stereotypical, but I'm glad that it's more present in the media.
Me too. With Netflix as a show about it.
Atypical, right?
Series about it.
Yeah. Ironically, the Atypical, the best represented character of high functioning autism in that show, ironically, I think is Sam's girlfriend, who really fits the bill of an aspie woman, and her struggles in college reflect that. She just couldn't fit in. She didn't really get why. And ironically, I hope she gets diagnosed later in the show. I mean, she just fits the bill so well, but it's almost like invisible even to the writers of that show. And Sam has more stereotypical autistic features.
Yes.
It's the irony of it all is really funny to me. No, go on. I'm sorry.
So I was just wondering how long did it take to diagnose you?
Oh man, 25 years. Yeah, I got my diagnosis just last summer.
So, but you were trying to figure out something for the past 25 years?
Yeah, I've always known there was something different about me, and I'd gotten mood adjustment disorder, bipolar 2, major depression, pretty much everything but autism. And I finally found people. Well, what happened is in January of 2019, my friend who's herself on the spectrum, she said, Matt, I think you're autistic. And I mean, she actually put it in a much funnier way. She said, I'm 1,000% sure you're autistic. And I laughed hysterically, and I'm like, oh, why? And she, in true autistic fashion, named a laundry list of perceptions about my behavior. And I said, you've got a really strong case. So I looked for specialists who deal with autism in adults, and that therapist was like, yeah, I think you are autistic. And the way he put it is hilarious to me. He's like, yeah, you got a couple toes dipped in the spectrum. And then to make sure it was the real deal, I sought a neuropsychiatrist in a nearby city, and she's amazing. Dr. O is what I call her. And she gave me the neuropsych battery, the AQ, autism quotient testing, and Wechsler's 4 IQ testing to see processing speed and working memory, all sorts of batteries. And she determined, like, you're definitely on the spectrum. It's just I don't present myself in ways that seem stereotypical. I'm really extroverted, and it doesn't compute to people's minds that I could be so extroverted and have not much difficulty talking to strangers, but still be autistic.
Really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, all kinds, right? It really is a massively big spectrum.
How long was your clinical process, Matt?
The clinical process for the testing was 3 days of 4 hours long each.
Huh.
So it's pretty intensive, but I thought it was really fun. I mean, it felt like a set of games to me. It was really cool.
Yeah, I felt the same. Which I've argued is also a feature of autism, the amount of fun you have with answering these questions.
Yeah. And she could really see it. I my fascination for animals. I remember what really sealed the deal was I just lit up when I told her for the first time saw a river otter on a run, and I freaked out because I love the superfamily Mustaloidea. It's weasels, otters, all those animals. And she's like, oh yeah, this is definitely a special interest. And I'm like, hell yeah. I went off on an animal fact tirade she never asked for.
So it's like a longer process to diagnose an autistic adult than a child.
Yeah.
It seems like
it's just historically there just hasn't been much research until recently, or even much funding in general for autism in adults. It was really a child's condition for so long.
Yeah, also the kids that are most obviously autistic, those get diagnosed, and people like Maddie in particular, and me as well, they get found out 2-3 decades later, often more. We know quite a few people that are being diagnosed in their 60s.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible how long it's taken.
Yeah.
And Arik, one thing I am really curious about is You mentioned how there are some societal pressures put on your son to kind of, mold himself into NT profiles, eye contact, etc. I'm wondering if you've experienced anyone who's set boundaries on what's possible for him after hearing about his diagnosis.
Do you mean possible for him to achieve?
Yeah, to achieve, in any capacity, sports or intellectual pursuits. I mean, anything really. I've experienced that myself. So I'm wondering if your son has had those experiences.
Not that I'm aware of, and I would be pretty pissed off if I hear about someone who tells him he can't do something.
Man, you are the best autism parent. See, not everyone's an autism mommy. Everyone.
No, I mean, my goal at the end of the day is to help him find what he loves, and he needs to do what he loves. And my goal is to help him find it. That's the goal. He can do whatever he wants. So we got the results from the genetic test the amazing doctor gave us, and we had to get them from a different doctor who has a specific, is a genetic doctor. I don't know if that's the right termination, but that's what it is. So my wife, I was at work in the US, and my wife told me she went to the doctor, and he told her, "Listen, he's smart. If he didn't have that mutation, he would be a genius." And I remember she called me,
wow.
And she was like pretty. She was in a bad shape because and he just said it. He didn't even think.
Right.
So I think that's the only, but it's not correlated to his autism. But again, I mean, he can do whatever he wants, and I hope that he'll do what he loves, not something else.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, that the doctor says if it weren't for his autism, he would be a genius. I would argue there are a lot of geniuses exactly because of their autism.
Yeah.
One of the features of autism is local cross-connectivity in the brain, and I think this often results in remarkable talents and lateral thinking and a lot of amazing features.
Absolutely.
I agree, and I think one of it's pretty common to see around if you search in some SEO tools, to see what people are looking on Google. Marketers do that for some reason. You see that a lot of parents are looking for famous people with autism or autistic famous people. And I think that for some parents, it's because they don't know anything about autism, they need to find some sort of a way to stay hopeful about their kids, but that only shows that there is not enough awareness to autism. Because if we had enough awareness to autism, and I'm talking about myself as well before my son was diagnosed, if we had enough awareness, then you wouldn't have to look for famous people with autism. You don't look for famous blonde people. Basically, you don't look for famous bald people. So
Jeff Bezos.
Exactly. But no, again, you won't see a lot of searches like that. And the reason for that is that people will say, okay, you can be very successful even if you're bald. It doesn't have anything to do with it, with being successful. And that's the same way with autism.
Yeah, and I notice a lot of autistic people are sort of written out in terms of their abilities before they even have a chance to really display what they can do. I mean, there's that very famous essay by that mute autistic person. I don't recall the title or the person's name, but I know it made big waves in the neurodiversity community because this person wrote a beautiful essay on their experience. And because they weren't able to vocalize their experience in the typical language, people said awful things right in front of them and sort of essentially treated them as if they were, in a living, waking coma. And that's just really sad.
And
yeah, it is.
That's one of the reasons I think that working remotely could really benefit people, really benefit autistic people, because people won't treat you differently. I mean, ever since I started working on Spectroomz, I figured out that might be a good way to actually help autistic people and help neurotypicals to work together afterwards, in the traditional workplace. That might be just a door for that. Without, people won't judge you by your cover when you work remotely.
Yeah. And what I really enjoy about Spectroomz is that you don't want to pigeonhole us into the tech sector, because that's the one thing. There's this idea, I guess it stems from the whole Silicon Valley romanticism of autism, and that it's this tech person's condition. But, while I worked in cybersecurity, I'm actually not good at programming, and I've tried. I don't have much of a natural talent for it. And I write, I'm on your site as a freelance writer, and most places that want to help autistic people in employment, they have this heavy focus on heavy visual spatial tasks and technical tasks, usually involving programming. And people like me get missed because a lot of us don't have those skills. We have skills in writing and other talents.
I do think there probably a disproportionate amount of autistic people in fields like programming. I do think there's truth to it, but you're right. Yeah. The creativity is also quite high in the autism community, and that is something not often talked about, I find.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of autistic people in law. I worked at a law firm for a while, and I've noticed there's a lot of aspies in law. It's because the rote memorization for legislation is incredible, and the ability to think creatively really helps in debate, which essentially law is just one big debate.
Yeah, so I read that actually 2.6% of the developers, software developers, are autistic, and that's like more than twice the share percentage in society.
Yeah.
So I think
that's incredible.
So what Marty said makes a lot of sense. But to be honest with you, when I started Spectroomz, it was just a few weeks ago officially launched, and still is in some sort of a stealth mode. I didn't know which category would do best. So that's the reason I started everything. I had no idea. I can tell you that currently most of the freelancers are either designers or writers. That's the most we have. We have some software developers and customer support and even marketing, but most of the freelancers listed are either designers or writers. And I still don't know what will work best, but I wouldn't try to fit autistic people or anyone, by the way, to any sort of role that I think they fit into. I mean, you have to figure out things along the way, especially when you're doing startup.
Yeah, I mean, I've hammered this point a couple times. I guess actually all of us have hammered this point a couple times now throughout this episode. But we had a guest on last time, Reese Finley, is a comic book artist, and we said that, it being such a big spectrum, it shouldn't be thought of as autistic traits per se. There are certainly, some traits that are seen across the board and, the vast majority of autistic people. But it's like neurotypicality, where the way it manifests in a person, they're completely different people. You wouldn't say like, oh, he's that kind of neurotypical. It wouldn't make sense. And the variety is there for us as well.
Yeah.
I agree.
So if you think about it along those lines, yeah,
traits are not inherently autistic or neurotypical. You see a cluster of traits that often come together.
I totally agree. I mean, and you see so many articles and posts about best jobs for autistic people, and you even see posts like that on Spectroomz that other people wrote. But at the end of the day, it would be weird to see an article about best jobs for neurotypicals.
Best jobs for brown eye.
Exactly. and I think that I talked to one autistic woman in Israel, and she told me, I don't like when people say people with autism. It's like me saying a person with manhood, and that's the point. I really understood it. She yelled at me in a good way, but she yelled at me. She told me that's the same. So stop saying that. And again, I mean, it doesn't make sense to read articles about best jobs for brown-eyed people. So it doesn't make sense to read articles about that. I do, however, see we have a post on Spectroomz about 32 remote jobs for autistic people, and it's like more of a tool that you answer 4 questions, and you get like a set of things that fit you, that is a better suit for you, and it's very interesting to see the results. Actually, want to write a blog post about it, but the results are pretty interesting because. So you have like 4 questions. To what extent do you prefer repetitive work? So it's 6.2 out of 10. That's the average. To what extent do you prefer your instructions to be well defined, less room for improvisation and interpretation? So this is like the highest score, 7.9 average out of 10. That's like 240 people answered that did that test. So that you see some interesting insights over here. So the most important thing for people so far is to get well-defined instructions and have minimum social interactions. That came second. So that was interesting to see that you do see common ideas among.
Yeah, and one thing I really think about a lot is if we took so much of the social edge off of things, that is to say, if we had a world where autistic people were embraced rather than punished for being themselves, I wonder how much of these trends we'd see. I wonder how much of this is informed by bad experiences in the past and, autism working together in a negative capacity for the person.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of this would disappear if we had a more accepting world. Would we see people be a lot more willing to socialize and fraternize if people were more accepting? I mean, my intuition is that, yeah, we would absolutely see that. But,
Yeah. And in that sense, autism isn't purely a neurological condition. It's also a sociological condition.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's something, unfortunately, the scientific literature really failed to answer. The pathology model of psychiatry is such that we're looking more into genetic sequence and we're looking so much more into behavioral aspects under a microscope, but we miss the sociological impact of, well, what informs these decisions, the phenomenological part of the equation.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see that change, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah, fortunately, we see more and more phenomena. Jesus, what a word. Research of that kind.
Yeah. Absolutely. And actually, Arik, have you heard of a recent study? I think it came out in 2018 or 2019. I'm going to look at it right now. How they use MDMA in autistic people who had really high scores of social anxiety, and they found great results. That there was a statistically significant drop in reported anxiety scores after just a few sessions, and it lasted 6 months post sessions and then a year after the session. So it seems to have a lot of stick, and there wasn't too much fluctuation in the overall average. I mean, these were over 20 points dropping, and controls saw nowhere near as much improvement in their scores.
So I heard about it. I didn't read it. But I did hear about it. I can tell you that I saw in Israel they use it for people with PTSD. That's is that the English?
Yeah.
For post-traumatic. Yeah.
Yes.
So that in Israel they use it for people who experienced like we live in a tough neighborhood. So there are wars all the time and stuff like that. So you have a lot of people with PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
So they use it to treat them, and it's actually really promising. They get really promising results.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's ironic. I'm looking at the section now where that's this header for this section of the article I wrote is promising results. So, to give hard numbers for people, firstly, to cite what study I'm talking about, let me find, it's a study authored by Charles Grob and Alicia Danforth and published in the journal Psychopharmacology. The article is titled MDMA Against Social Anxiety. So look for that. And to get some numbers, so they found that 6 months after the final experimental session, the control group's average score was about 60, nearly matching the cutoff limit. In contrast, the MDMA group averaged an LSAS score, which is a test to measure the amounts of anxiety someone's feeling, a score of 45. So 15 points below, on average than the control group. Which is that's a really big difference. I mean, granted, this study was limited. It was, I think, about 12 to 18 people, but this is also in relation to what you've talked about, people with PTSD getting this treatment. And we saw very similar things in those results where this would be treating PTSD in a lot of ways. I mean, this is social anxiety, and I imagine social anxiety is largely caused by remembering painful memories of being rejected for, being kind of weird to people who didn't understand the behavior profile. And it's understandable that this drug that combats PTSD with such power would naturally be good for people on the spectrum who face a lot of that discrimination and on a daily basis too.
And PTSD is also highly prevalent among autistic people.
Yeah, actually, that's another really sad statistic, as well as co-occurring alexithymia, which a lot of the social and empathy-based deficits, so to speak, that people see in autism, Martin and I believe a lot of that is due to co-occurring alexithymia that people just haven't really focused on in the literature as much until the last, maybe 6 years. On a different note, I found when I was 18, I got into mindfulness-based meditation practices because I was finding myself emotionally, going off the deep end and had a lot of traumas I needed to work through. And I found that after some really deep and painful sessions of meditation, I felt feelings for the first time I'd never felt. I'd felt more in touch with myself ever. And it was due to an emotional blocking of trauma-induced blocking, not my autism per se, because I'm still just as autistic, but I have a much easier time connecting with people. Even noticing facial expressions have become better and easier for me.
So once you were diagnosed, did you tell colleagues at work? And if you did, did you find people more accepting and more nice to you, basically?
I got mixed results as far as work colleagues. My friends at the job, the fellow workers, actually overwhelmingly were super positive about it. And a good amount of them were on the spectrum too. They just didn't know it. Yeah. So that would make sense. And my boss was surprisingly kind about it. In fact, she noticed I had some issue with paperwork because the way the questions were asked, it's a little confusing to me. And after finding out my diagnosis, she thought, oh, well, that makes sense. She actually became kinder to me because she realized I wasn't just trying to be an asshole. I was genuinely trying to figure out what was being lost in translation between our neurotypes, trying to communicate.
That's interesting that people assume we're assholes until they hear about our diagnosis.
Yeah. Oh, it's so common. I mean, and it goes both ways. For example, I've been on dates post-diagnosis, and I didn't really, I started telling my dates because it was, not in like a tirade, but just mentioning it because, it was a relevant question during the conversation. And what I found so stark was, despite having talked to me and laughing or having a great time for an hour, the moment I brought up autism, their affect changed, their personalities, like they started treating me different. It's like, well, you were just treating me totally fine for the last hour. I mean, I didn't morph. I'm not a werewolf. I didn't just turn, like I'm just telling you what's been prevalent throughout this entire time of you knowing me. This is not exactly a secret just because you couldn't see it. You know what I mean?
What change did you notice?
Well, they kind of
start becoming condescending.
They felt uncomfortable. Yeah. Some condescending, some uncomfortable, mostly uncomfortable and distant. It was almost like, finding out someone has leprosy and you're like, oh God, I don't want to be near that. It's really what it felt like. I was like, damn, I need Ben-Hur to come here and bring me some bread. These people won't get near me. I hope that's a really old school reference. Does anyone here watch Ben-Hur?
I did get the reference. I just thought bread was funny.
I didn't.
Well, bread is delicious, I'll tell you that. I eat too much of it. But what I'm wondering, Arik, is you're sort of a bridge between neurotypes. You know, you're the Moses of neurotypes, and, and so
I hope I would be allowed to get into the promised land.
Yeah, I hope you can really turn sticks into snakes. That'd be badass. But you know,
and you know why it's funny what you said, because my son's name is after the mountain that Moses stood and look at the promised land.
That's awesome. Was that Mount Sinai?
No, it's Nevo.
Oh, that's so cool. Dang, your son's gonna come hauling a big slab of stone one day and have commandments written on it. Where did you get this? Well, you know, I was in East Jerusalem and it just kind of appeared.
An autistic prophecy.
Yeah, an autistic prophecy. Yeah, we've got a separate guy. We've got an autistic guide, and he's just been too busy playing with a Rubik's Cube to make himself known. But really, in all seriousness, as someone who's dealt with companies and startups of various kinds, various sizes of organizations in terms of advocacy and trying to get people to look at autistic people as untapped, talent in the workforce. What have you noticed? Did you see any success stories, and what do those success stories look like? How does this actually manifest in the real world?
So again, my experience with traditional work at companies is limited because they were less open to do that. I did read several researches about that, and in these researches they say that you have to be, and that's why the questions I phrased in one of the tests I mentioned before were phrased that way. In the researches, they said that as long as you're not vague and you give very clear instructions and the expectations are very clear, you need to educate the environment, and it's going to work fine. Even better than that. But you have to make some adjustments, and it includes educating people initially, and includes having more one-on-one face-to-face talks, giving feedback about the job, and once you start, it's a process of several months, and once you go through the process, then you don't have to worry about it anymore. It works perfectly. So in terms of traditional workplaces, that's what I learned. That's a summary, but that's what I learned. And one of the articles I wrote is, so they have SAP has an Autism at Work program. It's pretty famous, and they have like some sort of manual on how to do it in your job, in your workplace. So I simply wrote the short version of it and the lean version for it. So any company without the resources of SAP could do that. It even includes like a Trello board with the tasks you need to do and everything. And when I sent it, I was hoping that companies would be open to do it, because here it is. You just need to implement it. It's pretty simple. It's not that complicated. But I was pretty depressed about the fact that that they were less open to that. And I reached out to diversity and inclusion professionals.
Why do you think there's so much resistance?
I wouldn't say it's resistance. I would say it's not prioritized on the top of the list. When you say diversity, you first talk about women and you talk about African Americans. And autistic people are not in the top of the list.
Yeah,
and that's a shame. And so I think we need to tackle it in a different way.
Arguably, this is where the neurodiversity umbrella does help, because it does make it so that you have a larger group of people than just the 2.5% of autistic people.
I agree, but you have to. So basically, every research that I read said the same thing. You have to do accommodations.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. You have to do accommodations. So in that sense, it might help in a way, but you have to do different accommodations to different type of neurodivergent people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's relatively more expensive, and that's why when I pitch companies, hey, go, you have autistic people, you can hire them without the extra expenses and without having a diversity team and without anything. Just go ahead and hire someone as a freelancer. And I believe that once they will work with autistic people, they will see how exceptional many of them, and they will get results. That would be basically the interview. That would be the door that opens possibilities for both parties. To work together. That and so far it's even before the beginning, but nevertheless, we already have several projects posted, so I see people are open to that. You simply lower the barrier or you remove the barrier.
Yeah,
absolutely. I know one of the biggest things that took a toll on me was fluorescent lighting. Fluorescent lighting, just after an extended period of time under heavy fluorescent lighting, it just starts hurting my head, and I can feel my cognitive performance slipping.
Yeah, same. That's when you think about it, it isn't really a problem. Okay, so if we have a problem with noise, so go ahead and buy noise cancellation bows to the employee. That's okay. That's not for example, for the tech companies, it's not really a problem. And if you have a problem with lightning, so you can find a different place for them to work for. You can do the accommodations, but it's I feel that when you start telling people about it, although it's not a big deal, and it really isn't a big deal, they see it as a big deal. Yeah. And I'm not even talking about the legal team. They think they have to start involving in it, and so it seems like it's there are companies who do that, like SAP and Microsoft and other companies. But I feel that in order for it to really spread among the business community, people simply have to work with autistic. To have the autistics, they need to have a good experience, and that's it, without all the fuss around it.
I'm wondering if smaller companies are more readily accommodating for autistic people than larger companies, because the larger ones want to maximize on the potential. And so they include the marketing team, they include the legal team, and it becomes such a big project. Then, of course, it's not a high priority.
Exactly. And that's the reason I said, and that's the reason I created the lean version of the guide. Mm-hmm. So any company can do that, even a small company. There are several nonprofits who educate companies about how to be more autistic friendly, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's a process for them for several months. So if I take 3 people or 4 people startup, and I say, hey, meet John, is autistic. Let him tell you what's important for him, what bothers him. It's like a family. It's more open, and people will feel. I think it should start with smaller companies. And by the way, when I reach out to companies right now to hire freelancers, I target smaller companies. I target startups. I'm not targeting big companies.
Yeah,
it's a long process with them.
Yeah. So what is your goal with that? Are you going to work up to larger companies in time?
First of all, I take it step by step. So my goal currently is to have at least 1 or 2 projects posted each week. So that's my current goal. But my end goal is I would be very happy if this would become a way for companies to hire full-time employees.
Yeah.
To start with different projects, get paid for these projects, get paid fairly for this project, so everyone makes money makes money and can learn from the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a good fit, you can continue working together. That's it sounds like a great vision for me.
Yeah.
When I'm building it sounds like a cliche, but I really think about my son. I think about how I know it's going to be hard for him to go into a new workplace. He's young, but these things takes time.
Yeah.
These things take time. So I'm trying just to build something.
So you're cultivating a better
incredible.
future.
And
yes.
I mean, I really, I just appreciate how much, as someone who's never been diagnosed, how much you care to look into it and earnestly, and amount of research done, and the fact that you really are embracing autistic perspectives, which makes me wonder, what have you learned personally from interacting with autistic people? Is there insights about your own life that have, grown out of this interaction with a very different subset of people, and, maybe epiphanies even about how to interact with others in the world at large?
I think that that's a good question. I need to think about it more, but just to the first thing that comes to my head is I really think I learned about diversity, like real diversity, like there are so many different people. I mean, people are really different from one another. So I think that's what I learned from the process, and from my son. Is really, I mean, he's different, and he's a lot different than other autistic people. So, and each autistic people is a lot different than other autistic people. So at the end of the day, we're all different. I mean, and
say that neurologically, the autistic brain is in fact more diverse than neurotypical brains. It's interesting. Yes, we have a lot of traits in common, and yet there's so much diversity, particularly on the autism spectrum.
I agree, and I think that's one of the problems, that you take so many different people, and you take some, a small portion of traits, and you say, okay, they are all on the same spectrum. It's kind of I think this should be fixed in one day. Maybe a different segmentation, if people are so eager to get some sort of segmentation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think diversity is the most important thing I learned about it.
Absolutely. And we talked about your son a lot, but I wonder, what are his special interests? What are the things that he, obsesses over?
Actually, I'm not. I don't know if I'm obsessed about it, but he really likes music. Not to play music, but to listen to music, and he listens to the music I listen to. He already has his own playlist on Spotify.
Oh wow!
And and if he hears like a good song that we're driving together, and I'm telling him, hey, I just added this song to my playlist. Do you want to add it? So he says, let me hear it first. And sometimes he says, yes, I want to put it in, and sometimes he doesn't. And that's so that's one thing he really, really likes.
And what kind of music is this primarily? Give us a few examples.
It's mainly rock. And again, I think that's mainly because of what I listen to. But you would let me take it. Let me have a look. I'll tell you exactly. So he has One of These Nights by the Eagles. He has Colors by Black Pumas. He has Highway Tune by Greta Van Fleet. He has Bruce Springsteen, but that's because of his father. So, Sunday Road, Tougher Than the Rest. He has Guns N' Roses. So he's doing well. I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, he really loves his 60s to 80s era music. I can imagine he's going to be 6 years old, lying in his bedroom, listening to Stairway to Heaven. Just
he even have some swamp rock here, so that's even nice.
That's wild. Does he listen to Queens of the Stone Age?
No.
I recommend you both listen to that band. Incredible music.
I will. So that one of my favorite things is to discover new music. So can you send it over?
Yeah, definitely. I will send it. 2 songs in particular, No One Knows, and Threes and Sevens. I feel like Threes and Sevens is one of the greatest rock songs I've ever heard. I'm a big stan for rock music too. So I do know. I was one of those weird kids in middle school who would just carry CDs of Queen and the Ozzy Osbourne 2-disc Essential Collection set, and Def Leppard.
Yes.
Like, yeah, it wasn't good enough just to have the records. I needed the best records. So I would be like the kid perusing
Really
the
cool.
discs aisle in major stores, like curating my playlist of CDs.
Hopefully you will be the same.
I'm a dinosaur. You don't want those CDs.
Without the CDs, obviously. It's Spotify. Yeah, I have my CDs as well, kept in a safe place.
Absolutely.
So he really loves that, and he loves TV.
Oh, hell yeah.
We try to to put a limit to it, but not because he's autistic, because he's a child.
Yeah, too much TV isn't good for anyone. Age agnostic, really isn't. You don't want to sit in front of the tube too long.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you like Foo Fighters, the band?
No, I actually don't. I was trying to listen to them quite a lot, but I couldn't. I don't know why. If you have like some, but I'm open to giving it a try again. So if you want to send some songs that you think they can make me fall in love, then feel free to do that.
Yeah, I'll send you some Prince songs. You'll be loving everyone you're seeing when you listen to that. Little Purple Rain.
Yeah, I know that. Are you familiar with JJ Grey and Mofo? Have you heard about them?
No, but that's a hell of a name.
Yeah.
No, I'm not though. What is that again? JJ what? The jet plane?
JJ Grey and Mofo, Mofro.
Whoa, that's wild. I don't even know what that means.
Me neither.
Is that even a word?
But I heard their song in in House of Cards, and I simply Shazammed it, and I started like from there. I think they are my favorite band right now. They're really, really good. You know what? Let me see if Nevo's playlist is. Let me see if it's public. Maybe I can share it with you guys. You can see what.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that. That'd be so cool. He's gonna be internet famous. Just have the playlist. He's gonna have to curate. He's gonna be curating playlists for the world.
Yeah, that's it.
His playlist will be played in clubs all over the world. That'd be so badass. The 4-year-olds whose playlist is played around the world.
Totally. I just sent it. There are some Hebrew songs over there, but basically. Most of it is not Hebrew. Yeah,
so I just linked a song called a Pyrophobia by Animals as Leaders, and this is a really crazy band. The lead guitarist Tosin Abasi, I mean, he plays an 8-string. This is like an 8-string classical guitar that he'll play the melody line and syncopate with a bass line on the same instrument. He's insane. He's beyond human, and it's jazz, classical, Spanish, and math rock mixed into one song. And I mean, any nerd who loves analyzing music, if your son's really into analyzing music, he's going to spend eons decoding what the hell's happening here. I mean,
yeah, no, that sounds amazing. I'm gonna check it out.
And so we're getting near the end here, but I have 2 very important questions to ask you.
Yeah.
One, tell us why hummus is so damn delicious. And part 2, in your opinion, where should I go to get the best hummus if I'm visiting either Tel Aviv or Jerusalem?
Hummus is delicious. Yeah, it's delicious. I mean,
yes, it's easily the most important things I've asked throughout this entire episode.
It is the most important thing. The best one is. There are several ones. Actually, the best one I ate is actually in an Israeli Arab village near at the northern Israel. So that's the best one I ate. But there is some sort of a consensus that the best one is in Akko. Akko is also in the north, and it calls Hummus Said. So that's probably the biggest consensus.
Dang, wow. I got to check it out. Check it out, people. Book your tickets now. Well, not now. Stay inside, self-quarantine. When all this is over, go to Israel and get some damn hummus, please.
And it's hot in Israel. I mean, the hummus is hot. I know I took someone from the States to eat hummus in Israel, and he was pretty amazed that that you got like a hot dish of hummus, because I think that in the States, you pretty much get it cold. So
yeah,
in
you
Israel,
mean like temperature wise, right?
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that's
yes.
true. I've never gotten a warm bowl of hummus
So
in my life. I feel cheated.
that's a different experience. That because I'm not eating cheeseburgers. I'm not eating. That's like some sort of traditional thing for some Israelis, not to eat meat and dairy at the same dish. But other Israelis who do eat meat and dairy in the same dish told me it's like eating hummus without a pita. So that's a great example.
Well, don't judge me too hard, but I've done that. I love hummus so much.
It's amazing.
And Martin, have you got any closing questions for Arik?
I don't know. It's difficult as a closing question. I was curious about Sonya Bot, though.
Oh yeah, well, we can talk about that. No need to rush it.
Basically, as someone who runs a crowdfunding platform, one of the biggest challenges is to do customer support. You constantly talk with people about how to succeed with their crowdfunding campaign, simply because you as a business owner, you won't make money if they would raise money. And I kept repeating myself. So I decided to basically build some sort of a bot that basically gives you like a 30-day program to run your crowdfunding campaign, and that's Sonya. It's like a 30-day campaign plan
to
run your crowdfunding campaign that tells you each day what to do. So it's actually password protected, but I'm going to share the password here so you can share it with the neurodivergent community.
Dang, the gifts keep coming. It's Christmas.
So I just sent it. So people, it's a Bruce Springsteen's album. So
it's a wonderful password because it's a state nobody even visits.
Think about it.
And it's not even much of a giveaway because we have a bunch of those in America. Yeah, one thing I was curious, did you have a hand in actually coding Sonya Bot? Or
no, there are no-code tools that enables you to do that. I've spent a lot of time designing it, but the experience but I didn't code it.
Oh, so I guess you contracted programmers, right?
No. There is Let me try to remember.
You found an open source project, or
no? It's a service called ChatView.
Oh wow!
They have like a free version, and you can simply it's drag and drop.
Wow!
Exactly. That's so you can do that.
That's crazy.
Yes, and it had a big impact. It helped a lot of people, and it also helped me as a business owner. I mean, I didn't have to spend so much time at the phone or in emails explaining what to do next. Like they had a plan. Once you start, using it, you'll see it's while it's generic, it also gives you specific action items. So that's
how does Sonya Bot's functionality map onto the various crowdfunding services out there? Indiegogo and Kickstarter and not Bonfire. Well, yeah. Anyway, how do they map onto the others?
What I mean, so it doesn't recommend any other service. It's anyone with with a crowdfunding campaign with road or donation based campaign could find it very, very useful.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so anyone then on any platform that raise money, GoFundMe and Kickstarter, Indiegogo, you can use it. It even includes, maybe not Sonya, maybe I have a crowdfunding course. It includes like a perk bank, so it gives you like in 3 or 4 different categories a list of perks you can choose from.
That's really cool.
Yeah, feel free to you have the password. Feel free to try it.
Absolutely. I will. I will not visit the state, but I will try the bot. But with that, I'm sorry. What you want to say? Yeah,
I just wanted to say that if people hear us and they feel they want to work from home, so feel free to to visit Spectroomz and sign up as freelancers. I would be delighted to to work with everyone.
Absolutely. All of you neurodiverse folks listening, please come and join this. It's an important project. And I mean, we all want a better world for us. So why not? Why not join something that's actively putting money in your pocket and helping others on various other people of various neurotypes. And NTs out there, spread the word, be good allies. And with that, we're coming to a close. This is the time where you plug yourself. Where can people find you, follow you?
I think Twitter would be best. It's Arik Broch. It's pretty difficult to understand from my the way I pronounce it, but I just sent it, and they can simply look for Arik Marmorstein or on Twitter or on LinkedIn, and especially on Spectroomz.
And for the listeners, it's @ ERIK Arik Broch BRODCH. All one word, no underscores. We don't mess with those around here.
Exactly.
And any other plugs? Anything else you want to get out there for the world?
No, I'm good.
Absolutely. Arik, thank you so much for coming on. And honestly, until I did research for this episode, I didn't even realize the crazy amount of stuff you've done. Dang, dude, you're busy as hell.
I am, man. Thanks a lot for the opportunity to share it. I really enjoyed the conversation.